And with that, I will introduce our speakers today to present the Network Modernization webinar. Sean Wilson, our VP of Client Solutions, John Moorhead, Senior Solutions Architect, and John Klossner, Director of Network and Data Center, will be walking us through the content. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Sean.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time today to join us to discuss network modernization and why the future is now. From an agenda perspective, we're going to talk about why modernize. All right, so we'll spend about 15 minutes going through the reasoning behind why modernization right now is more important than ever. All right, and then we're going to talk about how you can go about modernizing. So spend about 15 minutes on some portfolio updates that would allow you to take advantage of all of the reasoning, all right, when it comes to upgrading your infrastructure to support all the next generation trends. Following that, there'll be a quick call to action, all right, where we'll talk about how you can get started and start to take advantage of some of the things that I personally stepped through before I hand off to John Moorhead, our Senior Solutions Architect, who's going to take you through a number of different demonstrations leveraging Cisco's latest DNA, Digital Network Architecture platform, to ultimately simulate and show you the power of what is possible, right, after you upgrade and refresh / modernize your network. So why modernize? Okay, there's several drivers of modernization, all right, and this doesn't just apply to network infrastructure and network analytics platforms. This applies to everything. So why would we choose to modernize? All right, so stepping through this left to right, there's a need for flexibility and agility, ultimately to integrate IT tech that aligns with business needs, all right? The mandates that the business is putting on you, right, as a technology provider to your organization, agility is key here, right? That is a big business benefit and one main reason to modernize. Cost of maintaining legacy applications, systems, and infrastructure. We all know that total cost of ownership of legacy platforms, right, requires more operational overhead, sometimes legacy skill sets, all right? So retaining people who have been in the industry for a long time not only can be difficult, but also can be very, very expensive, all right? So it's another reason to modernize. Simplification, all right? And modernization of next generation technologies will make it easier at the end of the day for you to take care of the day-to-day and focus on things that are far more strategic. Shortage of employees skilled in legacy languages, I just referenced that. Now languages can be looked at differently here in this case, and we can be talking about infrastructure or programming knowledge at the end of the day to take care of legacy network platforms and applications. All right, today, individuals that are going to universities right now are really not focused on the legacy ways of managing legacy platforms and networks. All right, they're learning new skills, software-defined skills, new coding skills, and we're going to talk a little bit about how CLI compares to the bigger world of programmability today. All right, and John Moorhead in the demonstrations will show you exactly what I mean by this. Employees' expectations for equal or better tech at work to their personal tech. So this is more focused on the end user, but at the end of the day, we're going to focus on user experience today because they just expect things to work, right? They're going to expect speeds, right? They're going to expect quality of service when they're leveraging the applications that they need to do their job. They grew up using this technology, right? And even folks like myself who are, as a technologist, right, who've been doing this for a very, very long time, the consumer tech is very, very good, right? And if the organizations and workforce don't keep their infrastructure and applications to be able to compete with that, user experience will go down, adoption will go down, folks will get frustrated, and that'll fall back on the technology teams. So these are the four main drivers of modernization. So why modernize? Just to expand upon that. It is the foundation of next generation IT services. We've been saying this for years. It's nothing without the network, all right? You need to be able to provide users with the ability to perform tasks quickly and efficiently, right? If the network infrastructure isn't up to date, then it makes use of applications difficult, slow, and cumbersome, all right? Couple that with things like the proliferation of wireless technology and mobile devices, right? They expect to get the same experience regardless of what device they're using, whether they're in the organization's four walls or off net. COVID-19 is a perfect example where everybody had to leave the organization's four walls depending on your industry. And if their experience was completely different and the performance suffered, right, that's going to make it back, right, to the organization to go ahead and modernize. Multi-cloud architectures. All right, multi-cloud architecture is absolutely driving network modernization because traffic patterns are not the same. I don't care what the technology. If you're taking advantage of public cloud in any fashion or form, right? If you're taking advantage of containers and Kubernetes, if you're taking advantage of SaaS, if you're moving any of your collaboration, voice, video, and contact services to the cloud, right? Any IoT that requires edge computing and processing and analysis, all of your traffic patterns are evolving, right? Couple that again with Wi-Fi 6, all right? And you should be able to do anything that you need to do regardless of where you are. So whether it's private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, co-location, Amazon, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, doesn't matter. Your traffic patterns are completely different. So if your network is built in a legacy way, you're not going to get the experience that you need. Needed visibility. All right, so this has gotten much better over time. All right, so the analytics platforms that are out there and things like encrypted traffic analysis, right? Things that Cisco has patented and built into their platform to inspect traffic that is encrypted and use things like artificial intelligence, analytics, and machine learning and telemetry to expose those things, all right? We're now able to get the visibility that we need. The more visibility we have, the better experience we can provide to our customers and our partners, all right? Additionally, the more visibility we have, the better security we can provide the organization. Obviously, security is first and foremost top of mind for every IT professional, right now working. You don't just need to be on the security team to be concerned about security. This should be top of mind for everyone, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Wireless everywhere. All right, so we already spoke to the proliferation of mobile devices. That's been going on for a long time, but 220 billion devices connected to the internet, right? That's unbelievable. In 2020 or 2021, right? We need to be able to support that. The trend of software-defined, right? So software-defined networking started in the data center with technologies like Cisco ACI, all right, VMware NSX, right? But it's branching out into the access layer, okay, and at the edge of the network as well, and things like SD-WAN. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I've already referred to the application experience and the user, all right? I love this, Dilbert. How long would it take to add that feature to the legacy system? That depends. When will the new system replace the legacy system? In 6 months. Then the new feature would take 7 months. Nobody wants to go back and put in that effort. But there's times when we get into this incredible pattern to where we do prolong things. So it's important that we look at this in a holistic way. So why now? Right? So it's not just why modernize, but why now? Mobility and remote workers, the proliferation of devices like I already spoke to, security, the ability to apply policy and access with a drag of a mouse by department, all right, or by location in seconds, right, after defined. So intent-based networking, and then compliance. Everybody is loaded up with regulatory compliance issues, right? So security ends up being one of the main drivers for network modernization. Real-time collaboration, all right, near and dear to my heart. Voice and video over the internet and cloud services for real-time collaboration is requiring organizations to upgrade their networks and change the way that their networks are designed. So many of these services now are over the top, all right? They don't require MPLS. And the services are over the top and leveraging internet, right? You need to re-architect to be able to support that. Bringing redundant internet connectivity into locations, right? Driving carrier costs down, right? Real-time collaboration is a big piece of that along with SaaS. So multi-cloud architecture, SaaS, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, applications and workloads are in so many different data centers now, depending on what you're doing. Public cloud for service delivery to your clients and partners, or in the app dev or DevOps, and a lot of premise-based workloads as well. But disaster recovery and business continuity ultimately demands multi-cloud architecture today. Okay, so this is another reason why we need to modernize the network. And then IoT. So whether your organization isn't doing a lot with IoT right now, you can think of consumer devices, right, from an IoT perspective. But sensors and devices are being plugged in everywhere. I don't care the vertical, healthcare, manufacturing, things like K-12, right, higher education, financials. It all depends, right? But sensors and devices, right, are getting plugged into everything now. Sensors and devices exist, well, sensors specifically, to provide data back on how things are performing or functioning. As you provide data back, where does that data go? Does it go out the internet? Does it sit at the edge of your network to be analyzed and processed? Driving edge computing, right? And then the need for operational technologists putting the demands on IT staff to ensure that the technology supporting their systems that make operations work, right, is a big piece right now. In organizations that we're speaking with, it's the OT folks, right? It's the directors of warehouse, right, or distribution that are mandating that technology be refreshed to support their needs. So what's this look like visually, right? Clients rely on hybrid multi-cloud environments. This is supposed to look like, you know, a spider web, because it is, right, at the end of the day. These are all the different things, right? If we go right to left, right, as we're requesting access to other applications and systems just to make one application work, right? So visually depicted here, whether it's a wearable, right, an Echo, right, or a mobile device, they want to purchase something, right? There's so many different paths it can take to make that request happen, right? Cloud computing is a big piece of that, right? Being able to spin workloads up and down based on needs and demands, all right? But if the network isn't built to support this, the experience is going to be horrible, okay? Just diving into visibility a little bit more, right? Poor visibility makes IT difficult, right? And it makes it difficult. And what can't be seen is hurting our clients more than they realize. Right? This applies to so many different things when it comes to network and applications. All right, and applications are nothing without the network. But a lot of the times, we're flying blind. All right, and that impacts user experiences. Right, it results in us fighting fires because we end up being reactive. All right, and then service level agreements are not met. Right, and again, driving user adoption and the experience down. We end up wasting a lot of time and resources because so many things are reactive. Right? We get in war rooms and we all come together and we have to work things out. All right, the network needs to be able to support that and provide the visibility that you need so the finger pointing goes away. And ultimately, that results in reduced productivity. Right, so far more discussions and things taking place when ultimately we could just bring the issue to light. All right, and determine where the problem is. All right, and there's a number of applications that sit on top of a refresh network that can help with this as well. So here is the IT war room. All right, typically you could all be on a conference call at your cube, or you could all roll into a conference room, whatever it may be, right? And at the end of the day, this is what's happening. You got the developer saying the code is executing fine, all right? You got the network administrator or engineer saying, I don't see anything happening on the network, and then you have the guy sitting on the left saying, I think it's the network. How do we ensure it is or is not? Right? And additional visibility in Cisco's upgraded platform allows you to do just that. And then you've got the business war room. So if we always tie this back to the business, right? Conversion rates are dropping, spend is down. Why is this happening? The network is foundational, not just for next generation IT services, but for business operation, right? And a modernized network has so many different business benefits, all right? Risk reduction, all right? Growth and expansion and scalability and agility, right? Productivity and efficiency gains, right? There's so many things that the refresh network provides. So a holistic approach is needed, right? If you look in the center of this, networks have had these devices for years, right? If you look at the very, very left, right, you've got different endpoint types, whether it's an Apple Watch or a mobile device, smartphone, it doesn't matter. And then some IoT, right? You've got some, looks like power over Ethernet lighting there, for example, and controlled lighting. The big difference is as you move further and further to the right, all right, where the network is truly changing. So don't think of the architecture so much here as much as intent-based networking, identity and policy application on the network. So much more than just network access control. Think of segmentation via software, all right? Think of software-defined configuration across thousands of devices, all right? And then automation and analytics on top of all that. So unified operations and pervasive segmentation is ultimately what you get from this. And John Moorhead, as I hand off to him, is going to take you through some of that. So the evolution. So that was all the why. All right, now let's talk about the evolution of the platform. All right. So if we were to go back in time and then fast forward to present, right? When you look at switching, you've got Cat 3Ks, 4Ks, 6Ks, the access layer, the distribution, all automatically, or now all the way up to Catalyst 9Ks. And we're going to talk about why that's important. 802.11ac, now up to Wi-Fi 6. And we'll talk a little bit about the branding there as well. Cisco ASA firewalls now being firepower threat defense appliances, and the differences there. CLI versus programmability, right? The difference in how we configure and manage the network. Carrier services, right? How things have evolved with regards to private backbones and MPLS technology with the transition to direct internet access, all right, and SD-WAN. And then at the end of the day, something that is often overlooked, the change in how you buy, the change in how you consume ends up being impactful here, right? So perpetual licensing models and software support evolving into subscription-based models. So switching, and I won't spend too much time here so we can hand off to John. But if you look at where things have come over time, right, and we go back to the 2000, 3000, 4000 legacy Catalyst platforms, they are found in yesterday's networks. There's still a lot of them on the network. So many of them are end of life and end of support. And most of them are 1 gig technology. Right? Some down to the 100 meg depending on switching, right? But most folks are by that, but most is 1 gig technology, right? And at the end of the day, they're built on different platforms. So you have very non-consistent quality of service policies and configurations, right? And at the end of the day, can be different operating systems based on how you configure it too. With today's 9000 series line, all right, we've got the 9200 entry-level access, all right, and if you upgrade to the 9300 fixed stackable access, more comparable to the 3650, 3850, right, you get things like encrypted traffic analytics. 9400 modular access line, the 9500 fixed aggregation core. But why does this matter? This is why it matters. When it comes to being able to manage a network via software-defined applications, you now have a consistent unified access data plane basic platform. All right, so these are all built on the same chipset and platform, right? Same operating system. Makes it far easier to configure when you need to go in and do the CLI. Gives you consistent quality of service across the network, taking the user experience up to how you want it. Same single software code base that allows you to use software-defined access, which is one of the things that John Moorhead is going to take you through momentarily. Truly software-defining the access layer and configuring it via an application, all right? Provides assurance, right? So analytics and the visibility into the platform because it's all standardized. And then, as I mentioned, encrypted traffic analytics, I've mentioned this a couple of times, where they leverage data and telemetry at the end of the day to inspect encrypted traffic, look for anomalies, and then apply analytics and machine learning on top of that to bring those things to light. And what's great is if you can do that, you can then automate, right, the quarantine or remediation of that, right? And this is the power of software-defined. Legacy Catalyst 6500, originally released in 1999, right? Here we are 21 years old, right? Truly incredible. Still found in so many data centers, right, and closets out there. Still found in many campus cores. End of sale this year, all right? So you get 21 years out of a platform. It's truly incredible. It's but now we take that up to the 9600, all right? Again, unified access data plane, right? Modern campus core today, going all the way up to 100 gig or multi-gig, all right? And also supports software-defined access. So again, secure segmentation and centralized management via DNA Center, right? Which John will take you through. So the evolution of wireless, right? I think what we really want to focus on here to make sure everybody understands is why Wi-Fi 6 is important, all right? But if you look at today's campuses, wherever we work, these are things that we've been providing wireless connectivity to forever, right? The users, the things, and the mobile devices. None of that's new, right? It's supporting all of those, the next generation radios and all these devices to be able to support higher data rates, right? IoT is driving upgrades in wireless technology because it's more devices that nobody really ever anticipated. And then growing threats, right, at the end of the day as well. So 27.4% increase in security breaches in 2017. All right, and as a cloud-driven, mobile-first world, wireless upgrades are mandated. What's funny is as you go across the top, this doesn't seem like too long ago, right? But we already have to think differently. So when you see then, users expect immersive experiences, right? Well, that was simple information sharing and content sharing, not too different than what we're doing right now. IoT is the new mobile. Well, it wasn't too long ago where there were industrial IoT robots, right? And machines and scanners all interconnected, right? That was IoT, but it's completely changed. And then wireless is at an inflection point. So for the longest time, we were providing Wi-Fi and enterprise, right? And unconnected and cellular, right? LTE, these were things that worked for us. But now, when you look at things like providing unbelievable experiences to things like augmented reality and virtual reality and streaming video at 4K, right? It's a completely different story, especially over wireless, right? It wasn't too long where you had to do much smaller things cabled, right? Especially like big telepresence rooms. These things are all wireless now. Lighting, badge vending machines, x-rays, doors, MRIs, everything you can think of is connected now, right? So supporting that wirelessly. And then because you just can't, while some of these things support cabling, just the sheer cost and why would you run that infrastructure if you don't need to anymore? And then bridging 5G and Wi-Fi 6, and we'll talk about that. So we're more dependent on the network than ever before. From a naming perspective, for those who don't know, 802.11x, I think they really just wanted to simplify this. 802.11x is the 6th version of Wi-Fi, all right, with the IEEE. That's really what it is. So the Wi-Fi Alliance name is Wi-Fi 6. 802.11ax is the IEEE naming convention. Wi-Fi 6 is really just the next generation of Wi-Fi up from 11AC, which was released in 2013, to provide more efficiency, 4 times the capacity, right, in the way the technology works in IoT scale, all right? Things like better app performance, better battery utilization because of the way that your device communicates with Wi-Fi 6, all right? Higher power efficiency as well. So I just touched on some of these, right? These are 6 reasons why Wi-Fi 6 is vital, right? If you haven't considered this yet, you really need to look at it. I don't know if you have the visibility into the infrastructure that you need to see how your wireless performance is today, right? And how it's scaling with your organization. But these are the 6 reasons why you would need to do that, okay? Bottom right hand, so not just interference mitigation, but at the end of the day, a better quality experience is really what so much of this comes down to. Performance goes up tremendously, and then the security side of things as well. So the latest in Cisco's portfolio specifically is their Catalyst 9800 wireless controllers, okay? It's gonna be an appliance or virtualized, all right, just so you know. And then their 9100 access points, and that can get you started on your Wi-Fi 6 journey. So firewalls. Cisco ASA, right? Long time Cisco firewall. Millions of these all over the place, right? And they've slowly been refreshed over time. There's no next generation firewall features on this. So if you think about what people were coming after Cisco for, specifically when it came to the edge of the network in perimeter security, it was lack of next generation firewall features. So other organizations at times years ago were a little more innovative and pushed Cisco along that track, all right? But decentralized management also ended up being a big piece, all right? And folks would just be like, are you kidding me? I got to go into ADSM to configure every one of my firewalls and manage them and see them all separately. Kind of very similar to how you would take care of an older access layer network. These things are all end of sale and end of life now. Well, now with Cisco Firepower, that's completely changed. All right, and this has been around for a while now with Cisco, but just to call it out, it's a big piece in upgrading the network if you haven't yet. because it gives you the enhanced visibility that you need and all the next generation firewall features that you would be looking for, right? From IPS to AMP to URL filtering and to DNS security. And all those align very, very closely with the much bigger Cisco security portfolio with things like Umbrella, all right, and AMP for endpoints, okay, and Duo, right, and then their VPN technology, of course. The biggest thing is Firepower Management Center, right? So now centralized management, all right? And Cisco Defense Orchestrator as well. These are tools now that allow you to take care of your security world, all right, at the end of the day from a central management pane. Configuration and management. So CLI versus programmability. What do we mean by that? Well, these are key challenges for traditional networks today. And if you think about not being able to do it in a software-defined manner, right, it makes it really, really difficult. So it makes it difficult to segment. Ever-increasing number of users and endpoint types, increasing the number of VLANs and IP subnets. Well, that's great, right? It might not seem like going down into the core, right, and adding these things is too difficult, but what about getting it out to the masses, right? What about having the multi-touch that you have to do in a legacy network today to make sure it is implemented exactly how you want to? And not just how you want it to be, but with standards accurately, okay? It becomes very, very complex to manage. So many different things to do, right? If you have 20 branches, right? Headquarters and a few larger sites, that's a handful in and of itself, let alone if you have 100 locations, okay? Slower issue resolution. All right, so separate user policies for wired and wireless networks, and unable to find users when troubleshooting or when they come to you with a problem, okay? So the traditional networks just can't keep up with the demands that the users and operational technology staffs are putting on the network. So introducing DNA Center. All right, DNA Center, DNA stands for Digital Network Architecture, is ultimately the management platform, right, to provide assurance and software-defined access, right, across the next generation Cisco network. Assurance gives you the visibility and the troubleshooting and the AI insights that you're looking for, all right, which John will take you through a module on that. Software-defined access brings automation policy in a unified fabric to the network. Software-defined access, just to dive in a little bit more, nice visual here on the left. All right, DNA Center sits over the top of the network, right? And this is where the intent comes from. If you think about how I want my network to function, well, all of that gets managed in DNA Center. And while you might be like, oh, wow, this is all software and application-based, for those who love and want to work in CLI, you can work in CLI right from DNA Center, okay? And as I mentioned, so much automation applied to the access layer here, all right, and the analytics that you're looking for. So this is where all your policy and segmentation takes place, all right? And John will take you through that. As I mentioned, an automated network fabric, right? Open APIs. You can plug this into other applications so that, let's just say a request for a new VLAN or network comes in, a ticket gets opened via the service desk or via a director of networking. It goes into ServiceNow. With integrations to ServiceNow, you could automatically configure that network in your world, okay? And it will take advantage of the policy that's already defined for the things that you want to connect to. So connectivity. So this is going to talk about the difference between MPLS or a private backbone compared to DIA. Introducing Cisco SD-WAN. All right, there's also MERAKI SD-WAN. All right, we'll talk about that quickly, but the power of moving to direct internet access at the end of the day, not only because of where your workloads are and where your applications and services are being provided from, is that, there's tremendous cost savings, right? And SMP can help you with SD-WAN ROI, and then it's one of the call to actions we'll close off with. But these are all the different things that Cisco SD-WAN does, all right? So again, centralized management, all right, of this platform, all right, via vManage. This came from the acquisition of Viptela. Zero-touch deployment, right? Secure connectivity, and the reason why that's highlighted specifically is you can see where the new arrow is pointing to the right. Secure VPN overlay, enterprise firewall, IPS, URL filtering, umbrella, and basic application visibility is all included now with the lowest level of licensing, DNA Essentials. Okay, and as you go up the tiers, DNA Advantage gives you the dark blue, and DNA Premier provides you with the features in green. Okay, so centralized management, secure connectivity, policy-based automation, analytics, and assurance for the WAN. MERAKI Cellular Gateway, newer technology announced last year. For those, many folks may know of a company called Cradlepoint. This was Cradlepoint's business, right? You see all the red box machines out there, kiosks, or whatever it may be, some ATM tech, you know, a lot of banks leveraged them for ATMs. Cradlepoint was known for providing wireless connectivity or wireless failover, right, via LTE, or the Verizons and the AT&Ts of the world. Right. Well, now this is possible with MERAKI. All right. So again, you get wireless WAN. Right. You also get cloud central management of all of that. Scales to 1,000 locations, and you can do SD-WAN over it as well. So perpetual versus subscription models. So again, buying licensing outright. Right. And you could see the evolution of this as Cisco moved to Cisco One. Right, and they started to come up with portability around licensing and the likes, right? Once you wholly own them and you bought them, right, as opposed to forfeiting them if you move to a new device. Well, the evolution of this right now, so they are completely subscription now, right? Oops, sorry about that. So what's the truth, right? We've just got one example here with some costs out there. So if you were to look at buying a 3650 switch, access layer switch, with 5 years of support, all right, as you can see the 60 months there, this is what the cost would be. So subtotal of $23,887, all right, quantity 1 here. If we were to have a similar configuration for a new 9300, right, which is a second level up in the access layer and includes things like encrypted traffic analytics if you're licensed for it, right, with the same support block, all right, so again, 60 months, all right, cost would be $18,295 over that 5-year term. And so what are we showing here? We're showing you that if you take a quick look, Cisco's not charging nearly as much, right, at the end of the day for the hardware, putting some of the money into the software, the support in the software side where you see the 260s. But over a 5-year term, you're still $5,000 less, okay? And if you were to take that, right, so $5,592 savings with a subscription. But at the end of the day, we know that the lifespan of a switch isn't necessarily 5 years. It would take 12 years before the perpetual model will have a lower total cost of ownership. All right? It's just to show you that there are cost savings moving to the subscription-based model, all right, in DNA licensing model. All right, so we wanted to make sure that you saw this example. And this Cisco's doing this across their entire portfolio in all solution focus areas, not just the network. So a summary and call to action. The multi-domain strategy is critical, right? If this didn't prove that to you, right, and you don't have the visibility you need to even ensure, right, that it's time to upgrade, we can help you with that. But this percent right here of 42 of IT leaders believe consistent management across disparate networking domains is critical to achieve an ideal network says it all, right? When we refer to domains, we're referring to the campus, the branch, the edge with the WAN, the data center, and the cloud. Those are all separate domains, and there's a completely separate Cisco presentation on this because it actually brings you into some of their other portfolio. But it's still a very, very powerful stat that almost 50% of the leaders believe that consistent management is not only critical to achieve an ideal network, but take the operational overhead out of it at the end of the day. Let you focus on things that are strategic, right? And let the intent that you put into the network and the platform at the end of the day do the work for you. So the call to action, how can you get started? All right, and then I'll hand off to John. There's dozens of dCloud demos and labs out there. For those who don't know what Cisco dCloud is, it is a site available to all, right? Where you can go out and not just see demonstrations of the technology, right, to follow up on what John's going to show you today, but also do your own labs, right? So basically reserve rack time, if you were to look at it that way, virtual rack time to step through these different technologies. And there's truly dozens out there. If you have any questions about this, let's make sure that you follow up and we can get you all of the information that you need here. software-defined networking workshop. Right, we're happy to have a software-defined networking workshop, show you a little bit more, right, about what you're going to get a taste of today, to see how this fits into your environment. I mentioned this earlier, an SD-WAN return on investment workshop. All right, you can reach out to us if you want to understand why SD-WAN and when it makes sense for you. Cloud readiness assessment, right? We spent a little bit of time talking about multi-cloud architectures in the beginning of this, right? If you need to understand how your traffic patterns will change as you continue to embrace more and more cloud, if you haven't started doing that yet, we're here for you. And what's great about it is it doesn't necessarily mean a cloud readiness assessment to help you architect it. We also have cloud readiness tools that will tell you how things are performing if you're already there, right? And if you already have cloud instances, we can also look at what workloads may be prime to move out there next, okay? And then, of course, trials and proof of concepts. And there's an awful lot of that right now, considering COVID-19 and what that's brought to us. So if you have any questions on any of this, please follow up, drop them in the Q&A, or reach out to your account manager. With that, I thank you again for your time, and I'm going to hand it over to John Moorhead, Senior Solutions Architect, to take you through some demonstrations.
All right. Thanks, Sean. Hey, Jennifer, can you pass me the ball, please? Thank you. Share out my screen here. So thanks again, Sean. Just do a quick introduction. Again, my name is John Moorhead. Senior Solutions Architect, been with SMP for about 6 years in the industry, going on about 30 years. So about 25 years or so of CISCO experience. So if you have any questions at the end of this or needed more information, again, following up on what Sean said, call to action, you want to jump into some of those labs, let us know. We'll assist with you getting access. CISCO may have been limiting access to some of the D-Cloud and labs. So if they're still limiting the access to end users, please reach out to us or your CISCO account manager will be more than happy to help you get access to some of those labs and demonstrations if you need more information. But let's dive into this. Hope, as Sean touched upon, how and why really networks are going to become more modernized. Some of the things I'm thinking about the whole thing that's happening with the COVID-19, you may be asked, like, really, how can you deliver networks and troubleshoot and remediate, do all your tasks more from a remote standpoint. So that's going to be one thing that when I sit back and think of SD access and automation, a lot of the tools that we can provide, that you can provide to your business and management, saying, yeah, we can leverage some of these tools to limit our travel, limit the function that we may do. It might be very hands-on today, going out there and doing troubleshooting and things like that. Be able to leverage technology like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and things like that, which we're going to talk about and go into a little bit further with SD access. So I've been thinking about, I think there's a lot of benefits that could be leveraged by looking at this type of technology and deploying that and being able to help the business meet some of these what everybody's calling the new normal, right? So definitely think about that as we go through this. And again, really, some other things, there's a lot of things changing, right? Everybody from various networking technologies changing, lots of new applications, seems like all the time, new tools to support those applications, which always creates that never-ending list of new requirements for the IT staff to really support all the new, this digital transformation. So, but obviously, not a lot of new staff from an IT perspective. That's going to be probably challenging the next couple months to a year or longer to really be able to get more additional staff support. So it really begs the question, how is us as network IT professionals going to address these changes? I kind of mentioned that some of the solutions, leveraging automation, AI, ML, to really roll out new business solutions, troubleshoot, remediate, with high accuracy and speed. So, so some of the, obviously the other thing that's really critical is going to be security. Is really having, these solutions are going to require almost mandate to have built-in security, be able to push out policy that, that meets the business policies and also any compliance requirements to really address security needs. Like one of the most common things a lot of customers are looking at is like, how can I not just roll out macro segmentation, but micro segmentation? So we're going to talk about that and demonstrate some of those features in SD access going forward. So let's jump in. Like I said, we're going to do a little brief intro. I'm not going to go deep dive into SD access, but we'll do a brief intro and go into some of the demonstrations just to really show you how easy it is to get started. So really, what is SD access? Really, it's a GUI approach to basically creating a fabric, and within that fabric, there's really two main components. You got the control center, DNA center, and the components up top controls the fabric. And the fabric is comprised of different types of devices. Obviously, you got what they call edge device, which is basically your standard access switching or access points to provide the connectivity to end users. Whether it's a wired port or a wireless connection. There's other devices within the fabric that are deemed specific types of devices, like a border device, which provides connectivity outside the fabric, and that you can see on this diagram here. There's a little nomenclature as a B, and then the C looks like a router there is a control device. So we're not going to go into deep of what they do, but basically, the border just connects to other fabrics, other parts of the network, maybe connects into a firewall component or into a core type of architecture or a WAN edge or something like that. The control really controls the fabric just from a control plane perspective as well. So again, we're not going to go into real deep. We're going to just show you, some of the real ease of how to get started and how easy it is to get started with SD access. So if we look at that top part, the DNA center, and that's really comprised of three main components. DNA center breaks down into Identity Services Engine, or ICE, and then the other two ones, the Network Control Platform and the Network Data Platform, the NCP and NDP, are really two components that are comprised into the DNA center appliance. So there's actually a physical appliance. If you're going to roll out a production environment of SD access, there's going to be a cluster of those appliances. And the Identity Services Engine may already be in a customer's environment that you can roll into the solution. But the Identity Services Engine is a required component of DNA Center. They do now support third-party authentication, but you still need the Identity Services Engine to provide the microsegmentation and other policies. And again, Identity Services Engine is separate from the DNA Center appliance, but it is a component of DNA Center itself. An Identity Service Engine can be on its own physical appliance, or it comes in a virtual appliance that you can roll out in your own virtual environment, if you so desire. So DNA Center has it's actually 5 workflows. I'm going to show the 4. The 4 primary workflows are design, provision, policy, insurance. So we're going to cover all those in the demonstrations. There's a 5th one, platform. That's more for integrating to third-party platforms. If you have third-party firewalls or IP address management, DNA Center has a lot of third-party integrations that they have already, and they have APIs that you can integrate with other third-party products and services as needed. Down at the bottom, obviously, we talked about the actual devices that DNA Center will control within the fabric, switches, wireless LAN controllers, and APs. So if we dive into the first workflow, it talks about design. We're going to talk about design and provisioning. But design, very simple to build that hierarchy out, put in buildings, put in floors, put in maps and things like that. Very easy to start creating that and creating your environment without even doing any configuration. So this can all be done ahead of time, which makes it a very nice benefit. And what does that design really look like? Again, I talked about some of these things is creating those regions, the cities, the buildings. There's global settings. You can override that for site-specific settings very simply. And talk a little bit about IP address setup. You can have that built in, or you can actually import, your IP address management from third-party tools. One of the native tools that DNA Center and SD Access integrates with natively is InfoBlocks. And we're also going to show like how easily you can set up wireless settings in DNA Center and SD Access. We're going to show a little bit about that. So again, the design and provisioning go kind of hand in hand. We're going to have some demos that show both. The provisioning side, and it comes back to how can you easily deploy systems, and again, I go back to this, like what's going to be the new normal. This might be a key benefit for customers that want to be able to limit the need to jump on a plane and deploy something at a remote site. So being able to just ship out a switch, not even stage it, and easily get it on the network. Use someone that's locally there just to connect it, get it on the network, and it gets its DHCP address, and then you can provision it remotely. We're going to show you that, how easy that is to basically do a zero-touch provisioning of a network device. And again, we're going to show a couple of these things, but the point is setting up fabrics. You could have more than one fabric, or just one fabric if you have one big campus. If you're separated by a lot of layer 3s, you'd have maybe small little fabrics. There's fabric in a box type of architecture for very small sites, and the fabric in a box. You can have a device that is your border, your control, and your edge device all in one. So it scales up for large sites, and it also has a nice solution for smaller sites as well. So let's jump into the design and provisioning. So let me get logged in to the demo site here. And I may have to log in one or more times throughout the demos. So I sometimes have to get a fresh demo site here up for things to work properly. So I've done this a couple times, and it seems like that's the best way of making sure everything goes smooth. So we're gonna cover, like I said, we're gonna cover design and provisioning. And really, when you first come into DNA Center, it just gives you a real high-level review of what the health is, any critical issues, what type of, how many devices you have. And you can see here, we're not going to drill down into this, but it just gives you a nice configurable. You can put different widgets in here and things like that. But we're gonna dive right into design and just make the assumption that you want to set up a new site. You already have a couple sites already built out, in your environment, but you're expanding to a new area. So let's if you look in here on North America and US, you can see there's this customer already has sites in California, New York, Texas, and they're going to be expanding into, let's just assume they're going to be expanding into the Chicago area. So you can easily put in an area in here and build this hierarchy very, very quickly. And if we drill down in the Chicago, you can see then I can actually add very quickly add a building out here, and that might be our third building. So who knows? We could actually put anything we want in here. So let's just say it's our third building, and we could put in an address, and it actually will locate the address that you want and actually put it on the map. And it does GPS location and things like that. So you can actually switch different views. You can get a satellite view if you want, if you prefer the satellite view, or the more easily viewed, in my opinion, this view from a standpoint. So now that we built out a city, we built out a building, we can actually, if there's going to be, we're going to demonstrate deploying a wireless profile, and also, a wireless device out there as well. So we're gonna simulate that there's 2 floors out here. We're gonna say there's a first floor. Very easily you can see that the parent here is going to be building 3. You have a couple different choices of what type of RF model you want. So maybe the management's going to want, like, okay, we're not going to go with cubes or anything. We're gonna wall everybody off. It's going to be the new normal. We're going to go back to walls. And you could actually upload an image. I don't have up as part of the demonstration. We're not uploading a floor plan, but you could do that. As you can see, it's very easy to put in all your hierarchy here. So if we put in another floor real quick, we'll just do the same thing. Second floor, and we'll assume that's going to be drywall office. Same thing. We'll just take all the defaults here. We're not going to do it. So, as you can see, that was real easy to set up a new, a new area, a new city, a new building. The next step is, again, you can build all this before you actually deploy any devices. So the next thing you actually can do is start creating and deploying the profiles. So we're going to add a profile for our new site, and we're going to focus on wireless just as a demonstration. So we're going to create a new wireless profile. We're going to call it our Chicago campus profile. And every profile, we're going to have our corporate SSID. So we want, no matter who travels to whatever location, they're going to be able to get onto the same corporate SSID. So if you have executives or management traveling around to different sites, they're going to have the same SSID no matter where they go. They can connect and get onto the network. So we'll add that corporate SSID there, and obviously you can see there's my profile, Chicago campus, and it's not assigned to any site. So if we assign it to the site, and we're going to drill down, we're going to say this profile is going to cover all of the Chicago area. So we're going to have a common, if there's going to be more than one building, more floors, et cetera, they're all going to get assigned to that. So you can see now it's assigned, it's actually 4 sites. So if you're like, okay, well, there was only one physical building that we assigned it to, but, from a DNA center, the Chicago area, the building, the first floor and second floor is all considered a site from that perspective. So you can actually see the 4 sites that it got assigned to. So very simple to set up. So now that we set up the location, in the network hierarchy, we set up the profile. Now we want to provision, actually provision a WLC. We're actually going to re-provision one. So we're going to go into, we are on design, and we designed the hierarchy, we designed the profile. We're going to actually provision a device. We're going to look for WLCs. We can limit the inventory of what we're looking at, and we can look at the unassigned devices. So one of the devices that we're going to redeploy, you can see it's assigned to in San Jose. We're going to actually redeploy this guy to Chicago. So we're going to take him and provision him and assign him to a site he's already assigned in San Jose. So we're going to delete that real quick, and then we're going to we're going to send him to our Chicago site. So very easily we can choose if you want to do a wireless controller per building or per floor. You have that choice here if you want to have that level of redundancy or have a controller per floor. But we're gonna do a wireless LAN controller for that building out there. So assign that, easily gets deployed, actually gets assigned, and then we can actually then go into and provision the device after we assign it. So as you can see here, there's a lot of things that can be determined as you're deploying. So this is going to be the active main WLC. It's not going to be a guest anchor. It's going to be managing those 3 locations. As you can see, it's going to be at this point just one building and the 3 floors. But if you add other buildings out there, you can probably deploy another WLC. But if there's going to be another floor that's going to be added out, it will automatically be added to that. So we hit next here. Obviously, there's no templates, but if there was a template, we're going to show that deploying a switch to show you what the templates look like. And you can see here's a summary. So a lot of global information that you can pre-configure ahead of time. Your ICE server IP addresses, your DHCP servers, trap servers, etc., can all be pre-configured and then deployed very easily. So again, being able to deploy things in a consistent, very quickly manner is one of the key benefits of SD access. So we did the network hierarchy and design, we did network profile and design, we did the, we provisioned, a WLC. Last thing I want to do is that we have time for in provisioning is being able to demonstrate, a plug and play. So I said like that zero touch, provisioning type of approach, being able to easily say, okay, I have here's a 9300 switch in my inventory, and I want to deploy that with zero touch. So it hasn't been configured, just get it right off the shelf from Cisco and pretty much deploy that, that switch without physically touching. Maybe you ship it directly to the site. You have someone that has some level of smart hands that they can at least get it on the network, have it get a DHCP address and start communicating to it, and it'll automatically get deployed. So we'll select that. We're going to do a claim on that, and we're going to actually select a site where we're going to be sending this to. We're going to actually send this one down to San Jose, and we're going to deploy it down there. So as you can see, here's the configuration that it's going to be assigned to down in San Jose. The image that's going to get pushed, 16.2, what template it's going to use, and we can actually look at that template in the summary here, which we'll show here. So obviously you can have different variables. So we can obviously want to put a unique host name. There might be other variables here that might be unique to the configuration that you can call out that you put in here. So this might be, maybe this is an SMP, switch that we're going to do, it might be a 9300 dash, I think it's a 24 port, and it might be an advantage level switch that we're deploying down there. So you can put whatever naming convention that, that would be there. So we can take a review before we actually deploy this guy. You can see, okay, here's the switch with, so there's a 24 UX. With the image that's going to get pushed down there, and here's like Sean mentioned earlier, you can still do CLI. All this stuff is set up ahead of time from a CLI perspective. You can create these templates from a CLI perspective, and you can see here's the variable that got put in automatically. And then you say, oh well, that was an E. You can before you deploy it, we can actually go back. Change that to an E. Maybe that was essentials, not advantage. Actually, it has to be advantage or premium to do SD access. Just from a licensing perspective, there are requirements there, but just to show you that you can actually change that very easily before you deploy it. Make it whatever you want. So just hit a claim. We're going to say yes, and that device was successfully provisioned. If we go down here, you can see here's the SMP switch that we just provisioned and completed. So those are the demonstration. I'm going to provide the design and provisioning. We're going to talk about policy and segmentation next. So let's drop over back to the presentation real quick. Talk about that, and then we'll jump in and show some segmentation and policy. So segmentation with SD access is, you'll hear the term virtual networks, and that's really analogous to a VLAN or a single subnet, and also supports micro segmentation. So the way I really look at it, I look at macro segmentation is on the VLAN or subnet perspective, and micro segmentation leverages group tagging. So you'll hear scalable group tagging, or SGT. That's basically groups, and those groups can be, from manually put in, or they could actually be imported from, from Active Directory. So along with segmentation, policy is very key. So who, what groups can talk to what groups, what virtual networks can talk to other virtual networks, things like that, very easily to control and push out, with SD access. So again, we talked about virtual networks, uses scalable groups, SGTs to get that micro segmentation. Again, I mentioned that you can have those groups if you already have customers that may already have Identity Services Engine, ICE. Those groups would automatically be imported into DNA Center. Those groups can actually be imported from AD into ICE and then into DNA Center. So there's a lot of options there to import groups or create them statically if you opt to do it that way. We're going to show about managing group policies and how to allow groups to talk to each other, things like that. We'll demonstrate that as well. So that was a real quick introduction to segmentation. We'll jump back over to the demo environment here. And if we come up here and click on the policy, so really this drops you into the new group-based access control dashboard. So you go into policy. So a very, very nice visual indication of what groups are defined and what are the current applied policies to those groups. So if we look at one, if we see here at the very top here, we see a red one, and we click in there, we can actually see what the source of auditors talking to BYOD, the policy is denied, right? So obviously this policy status is enabled. The options there, you can disable it. You can also go into monitor mode. So if you just wanted to test a policy and not enforce it at first, you can go into monitor mode. You can see the contract here assigned to this policy is deny IP, and you can actually see what other policies are using that contract that deny IP. So not just auditors of and BYOD as destination. You can see like employees that this customer didn't want employees to talk to other employees for whatever reason, maybe to limit spread of malware and potentially viruses and things like that. So we're going to pop out of here. Just want to show you how easily it is to create a new policy. Let's make this assumption that this customer doesn't want, they heard about the HVAC hack and they don't want anything on HVAC to communicate to, say, the lights. So, we're going to create one here. We're going to say it's enabled. We're going to then deny IP, and we'll say change, and you can see how easily it is to apply a policy through the GUI interface of this, of the little matrix here. So you can see here, HVAC talking to lights, deny IP, but lights to HVAC is a default policy. Default policy out of the box is permit, so everything's allowed. So maybe, we definitely want to have that have the same policy for bidirectional, so you can easily click on to lights and HVAC. We can change that, and we can just say we're going to deny that as well. Just click save, and you can see if you hover over these, now it's bidirectional, same policy. HVAC cannot talk to lights, cannot initiate a connection, neither can lights initiate a connection to HVAC within that group policy. So we can actually create contracts. So that deny IP, sometimes some people call that a group-based ACL. Within this construct, they also they use the term as a contract. So it's actually access contracts from that perspective. I like the group-based ACL. I'm old school. I like the term ACL, access control list. So let's make the assumption that we need to create a new contract for a new application that might be getting rolled out, and for some reason we need to deny HTTP, and we also need to we're going to say deny. We're going to go in here and sort here real quick. Find our HTTP. It already selects the port that we want, and the default action, for some reason, we want to deny HTTP but allow everything else. for whatever reason, that's the access contract that we wanted to create for an application. So you can see here that the non-HTTP was created, and there's a little warning here, and you can see it wasn't deployed yet. So after you create a contract, you actually need to deploy that. And we'll do a quick refresh, and then that was deployed. So policies, no one's using that today, but that can now be very easily selected if you wanted to then apply that ACL or contract to a group access control. So another thing I want to show real quickly is virtual networks. We talked about virtual networks and groups. So what's the difference there? So by default, virtual networks really allow any user endpoint within the virtual network. So there's a default VN. So by default, all these users or groups in these users can communicate to each other, unless if you have a group-based access control that we showed in the previous example, if you have them locked down. But if you have nothing out of the box, you're going to have all your groups in one VN, and all your groups are going to be able to communicate to each other. As we know, the default control is permit. So very easy to get started. Everything is allowed to communicate to each other, but typically you're going to want to come in here and create some some virtual networks. Just to show how easy, how quickly we can create one. Let's just say we're going to create a virtual network for employees. I wanted to select so if we go back into here, into my virtual network employees, we want to put obviously the employees group in there, and maybe we want to have the contractor nurses in there, and maybe the doctors in there. So as you can see here, now we have a VN with 3 groups in the virtual network. And again, virtual networks is typically synonymous to a VLAN. So you're going to have an employee VLAN. And then another real common one would be typically, you're going to have a guest virtual network. So typically in there, you're only have the guest group, and they're going to be really locked down. Guests might only have access to a anchor wireless controller. It might only be wireless only, and an anchor controller might be on, handed off to a DMZ interface on a firewall, and they can only get out to the internet, things like that. So very easily to set up the guest, virtual network here. So we'll just do one last example to show you how easy it is. So we do a VN for IoT, and maybe IoT, we have the HVAC, we have the lights, and we may also have cameras in there. So again, by default, if you create this virtual network and all these can communicate to each other, but as you saw before when we did that group-based access control, we know that the HVAC and lights can't talk to each other, but they even though they're on the same virtual network, on the same VLAN or something. So very easy to carve out different virtual networks and policies. So one last thing, like a lot of people that need to be worried about PCI compliance, just to show you a quick demonstration there. Another way to create policy, for customers that need to ensure that employee devices and point of sale systems really don't communicate. So just want to show you how quickly you can implement, a policy. So there's another way of doing that. So if we go back to group-based access control and we go into policies, again, brings us back in here, we can create policies through that grid, but we can also come up here and create policies and say, okay, do I want to do source to destination or destination to source? You can do it both ways. Again, do that bi-directional, but this is, sometimes people like to do it this way because I'm walking through a little wizard type of here. So what's my source? My source might be employees. I want to make certain that any employees that communicate to, let's see, our point of sale systems, and we want to make certain that our contract, we do not want access there. So you're going to have an explicit policy. You can report on these policies, export them. So when you have auditors come in, you can say, yeah, here's our policy. We're having this controlled through our system, our DNA controller SD access solution here. Again, just want to show you how easy it is, and then that shows up. You can see here employees is now denied. And if you need that bidirectional, you can go up there and create it the same way. But in essence of time, I'm going to be skipping over that and going back to our presentation here. So that was segmentation. The last area here is really insights and telemetry, is how quickly can you determine issues with DNA Center. So DNA Center has a component called assurance, which we're going to be covering, and it leverages technology like artificial intelligence and machine learning, things like that, to be able to quickly determine what issues may be on the network, so you can get to a quick remediation. And again, going back to that, in my mind with what the new normal might be, is being able to do a lot of this stuff remotely, limit the individuals that need to go on site to do that remediation, instead of physically going on site to troubleshoot, being able to do as much as you can, or doing almost everything remotely is going to be potentially key for for businesses to limit that travel and expenditure. So again, assurance, the high-level dashboard, looking at the what the overall health is, and there's different views to drill down into a device, maybe a wireless device or an access point or switch. There's client views that drill down into how the client's performing and what how they're trending, what issues they may have, and actually you can drill down into applications. So there's a lot of information that gets fed into DNA Center that you can actually see what applications are being utilized on the network. So let me go back into the demonstration here. I am going to go over here. We're going to close this down. I'm going to spin this back up to make sure things are running good. Let's see here, give me 1 minute. I have to do this once or twice, but we'll see. Hopefully, bring this over here, log back in. Kick off our demo environment again. This one's a little bit particular. All right, so into our demo environment. And like I said before, we got the 5 up here. We're going to touch upon design, policy, provision, assurance. Again, the platform is integrating to third-party products, APIs, and things like that. But we're gonna drill down into assurance, become the insurance, the overall health. You can kind of see, how things are performing from a healthy standpoint. You can come down here and look at your top issues. The other thing you can look at, if you look up here, you can change the time if you want to focus just on the last 3 hours, 24 hours, 7 days. The default's 24 hours. You can show a little bit more detail here from a hierarchical site view where the problems might be happening. You can actually do it from a map view if you want to see where you might have some hot spots here and be able to drill down where some issues are. So let's hide that and go down to our top 10 issues. Just to give you an example, you can drill down here. This is a great example of some of the automation and machine learning and AI is leveraging a lot of this component. So being able to automate, like, okay, we have an issue here. This WAN edge device cannot reach ICE server, so you can actually come down here and you can actually verify the route. So it's going to actually check the IP routing table. It's going to check the IP Ceph route. Yep, it's there, and you can do further troubleshooting to see what's going on there. That's just one quick example there. Another example in the show is maybe like a layer 2 symptom. Maybe there's some sort of loop going on, and it's like, okay, well, what's going on here? Let's see, drill down even further. And again, this machine learning and basically, they have really cool thing here, root cause analysis, be able to really quickly determine, what may be happening and give some suggestions on what to do. So, hey, what is the root cause and what can I do to resolve that? So you can do a root cause analysis on an issue that might have popped up, and you can see here it actually detected, hey, we detected a loop on VLAN 31, and the suggested action is to shut down one of the ports, obviously. And then, that would resolve, typically that would resolve a loop if you had 2 ports in maybe some sort of port group that might not have been configured properly or may not have been connected properly. This way you can at least get things working better without a loop and kind of do further troubleshooting while everything's back at a more stable condition and see what the configuration issue might have been. So that's really quick from a high level overview. Next thing real quick was let's just assume that there might have been some user called in, they were experiencing some problems. There's various users calling and complaining about, say, wireless connectivity or whatever. So you can come in here and look at client health and say, okay, well, a lot of people may be complaining about wireless. We can actually come in here and see that there's some authentication. We can actually do drill down into some of the wireless issues. 15 not onboarded, and you can actually scroll down here. You can see there's some onboarding issues happening through through these users. And we're going to drill down in about a user view too. So just going back to this overview of what client health, you can actually see how the connectivity from a wireless perspective, how the signal strength is, the signal to noise ratio, roaming times. There's a lot of information you can drill down, and actually client devices information. So a lot of detail that you can easily drill down into. But let's just also assume that you had one user specifically calling in, doing a lot of complaints. You want to look at that one specific user. So one of the things that you can search on is by user. So maybe this user, her name was Grace, and you can see here's a Grace Smith, and you can actually bring up her user 360. So this says we're drilling down into a specific user and seeing what devices that she might have and how they are performing. So a lot of times users might have multiple devices. You can see here multiple tabs up here. This user actually has 4 devices, has an iPad, an iPhone, also has a Galaxy S10. Maybe she's migrating from iPhone to S10. Maybe she doesn't anymore, but you never know. And she has a PC. So you can see that she's definitely having some issues here on her iPad with connectivity issues as well. And we can actually zoom in and move these time and kind of focus in on what's going on in that time. So you can actually see within that time slot that we selected, we can see that there's, the wireless client took a long time to connect to AP 4800. So you can say, well, it looks like she's having a problem connecting to 4800. Let's maybe take a look at that, and you can actually, with assurance, again, we go back to the main one, we can actually look at the network health. So if you want to look at a specific device from a network perspective, you can take a quick look of saying, okay, well, let's look at top end APs by high interference. We can actually see the one that she was trying to connect to, that she was failing to, was that AP 4800. So you can actually come in here and do a drill down into the 4800, see what's happening there. So get that thing loaded up. Hopefully it'll load. There we go. So you can see there's a lot of red here. If we just scroll in here, we can see that the noise and the air quality, the interference, everything's at a 1, the lowest level there. So another thing that we can look at is this capability that DNA Center has is with capture. You can actually capture per user. You can capture on a device. But if we drill down into, the intelligent capture capability of, of an access point, you can look at our statistics, see what's happening from a channel utilization, clients, top clients, failed, things like that. The other nice thing is you can actually do a spectrum analysis. So if we click on the spectrum analysis tab here, and we start the spectrum analysis, we can actually see, some potential interference and what's going on with the specific AP. And we actually scroll down, we can actually see some potential sources of interference here. You can see a microwave oven's not really doing anything, but you can see this huge blob here, and you can see there's some sort of video camera that's causing some interference with that. So with a lot of information and data, you can actually do some very smart intelligence and analysis to see if maybe it was a user error, or maybe there is truly an interference on on the wireless before you send somebody out to the site to do some troubleshooting on site. I think I have one more here. Yeah, I do want to show real briefly, because I know we're coming on the top of the hour here, was just from a assurance perspective, is looking at application health, right? So I talked briefly about, you can actually see the applications that are running. You can see there's a total of 18 applications. You can scroll down here, you can see like, okay, I want to look at all my core applications and maybe all types, just in case I want to see all my core applications. You can see that the WebEx and MS Office 365 is having issues. In this example, you can drill down even further information into that application, see where those issues might be occurring at. Obviously, we know MS Office 365 is a SaaS application, and you can see where it's, if we scroll over here, we can see there's a lot of red in network latency and packet loss. Scroll down here, we can see what the type of source. You can see there's a looks like a WAN edge router and ISR 4461. You can see there's a lot of network latency there as well. And you can also scroll down here, after you're looking at it, you can see what users are being affected by the poor conditions for for 365. So you can see how easy it is to drill down. You see an issue with an application, you can drill down and you can kind of do some ciphering, and then from here you're like, okay, well, is it my issue? Maybe it was. If we go back in here, you can see the DSCP value, the expected value was assured forwarding, and we're seeing it being as the default, when we know the default is a 0. So obviously, if you're trying to do some QoS for quality of service, that would need to be looked into. And if that gets cleaned up and you're still having some issues, obviously, there might be some contention on your provider, because Office 365 is relying on a provider connectivity. So with that said, I'm going to scoot back over to the presentation and kind of wrap it up. I have a real quick summary. Just want to summarize, obviously SD access summary automation is really key, for for networks to keep pace, I think, with keeping up with new requirements, new digital requirements, and maybe the new normal, what's coming up. SD access may be a great fit for customers and organizations to really provide that level of provisioning and design and troubleshooting with minimal access to the to other areas of the business or the end user population. Showed a little bit how SD access and DNA Center with Assurance is leveraging AI and machine learning to really help remediate very, very quickly. Being able to drill down and look at the overall health from a high level, and then drill down very fast and determine what issues may be occurring on the network. So with that said, I wanted to thank everybody for your time. We greatly appreciate it, and wanted to kick this back over to Jennifer or Sean.
Thanks so much, John. Great job. Yep, thanks so much. Great job. So as John mentioned, we really appreciate everybody taking the time this morning to sit through this. If you have any questions or follow-ups, please do not hesitate to reach out. And with that, we will end today's session. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.